I think in the world of institutional investing and asset management serving institutions, then there's definitely evidence of a split or a bifurcation in the market that because of the need to get costs and fees down, then many institutions are allocating increasingly to passive products, and that's very well suited to very large scale asset management services. But there's also strong rationale for boutiques that have got differentiated investment philosophies and access to underlying portfolios that can really generate alpha relative to benchmarks. And I think that's really where Impax is positioned. Our differentiating idea is that in the transition to a more sustainable economy driven by population dynamics, by resource scarcity, by environmental concerns and other similar drivers, there will be a preponderance or prevalence of mispriced companies, cheap securities, fixed income, equity and alternatives that specialist investors or investment teams can access. So that's really where we're positioned. Yes, I think the planet today is about 7.6 billion people, and that's likely to grow to between 9 and 11 billion by the end of the century. So there's more and more people crowding onto the planet. They're increasingly moving to cities. They want higher and higher standards of living. That's putting a lot of pressure on certain resources, certainly on the environment, air quality, water availability and water quality, land degradation, soil degradation, etc. Climate change, of course, is part of that dynamic. And so in that context, there is a secular trend, a growth, if you like, that's expected to continue for the next decade and beyond, in which companies that are providing solutions to environmental problems or enhancing resource efficiency or providing goods and services that suit populations in a more sustainable society are going to see very strong positive trends. Impax's capabilities have been built since I started the company 20 years ago. We now have one of the largest analyst and investment management teams dedicated to those areas. So our view is that by deploying a large stable team of specialist professionals sited around the world, we should be able to get an edge in terms of understanding these opportunities, both at a market level and also at a stock or company level. Well, we're certainly seeing some institutional investors who've got a top-down approach to, for example, climate change, and have got a well thought through strategy to both ensure that asset allocation and also manager selection and manager oversight are consistent with the climate change trends that I've just talked about. Those sorts of institutions, however, are in a very small minority, and yet with governments and international efforts, for example, the Task Force on Climate-Related Financial Disclosure, or TCFD, reporting a couple of years ago and really strongly recommending better disclosure around climate change. We're seeing governments putting in a lot of effort at the moment to try and work out what that means, and probably to mandate better disclosure around climate change risk. So in that context, I think the trend is very much in the direction of more awareness amongst institutional investors around these sorts of issues. The threats on the one hand, the risks, but also the opportunities. And I think Impax's growth and the growth of some of our peers and competitors is evidence that money is starting to be allocated in these areas as a way of sort of capturing some of the opportunities and maybe sort of defraying risks elsewhere in portfolios.